You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. And before we dive in, let me make my standard apology. My voice is not a real human voice, it's an AI-generated one, which means when it comes to Hebrew, sometimes my pronunciation sounds less like a rabbi and more like a GPS that's lost signal in the middle of Tel Aviv. So if you hear me say something like Malachi instead of Malachi, just roll your eyes and pretend it's charming. With that said, today's topic is the Book of Malachi. Let's jump in together and see why this little prophetic book, tucked at the very end of the Hebrew Bible, is such a fascinating piece of Jewish tradition. And by little, I mean really little. Only 4 short chapters. Blink, and you might miss it. But don't be fooled. Like espresso in a tiny cup, Malachi packs a big punch in a small space, with themes that still echo in Jewish thought and practice today. Malachi sits at the very tail end of the Nevi'im, the prophets. In fact, in the Jewish ordering of the Bible, it's the very last prophetic book before you roll the credits. Imagine watching a long movie series, and this is the final post-credit scene that sets up everything that comes next. Scholars think Malachi lived around the 5th century BCE, during the same general period as Ezra and Nehemiah, after the return from Babylonian exile. The temple in Jerusalem had been rebuilt, but people were already slipping into spiritual laziness. Picture rebuilding your dream house after a fire, then immediately leaving dirty laundry on the floor and ignoring the leaky faucet. That's what was happening with the Jews of that time. Malachi comes in to give them a spiritual pep talk, or more accurately, a wake-up call. His words are sharp but hopeful, reminding people not just to worship with rituals, but to live with integrity, justice, and renewed devotion to God. One of Malachi's big themes is religious leadership. He takes the priests to task, accusing them of offering blemished sacrifices and treating sacred duties like a half-hearted side hustle. Imagine if your favorite restaurant started using expired meat and calling it gourmet. It's the same idea. The people were cutting corners in their worship, and Malachi basically says, hey, you wouldn't treat your governor this way, so why treat God with less respect? That's both a zinger and a reminder that spiritual practice isn't just about going through the motions. Malachi emphasizes that honoring God is about quality, not just quantity. In modern terms, think of it like online reviews. You can't just give God 1 star because you showed up late, brought leftovers, and phoned it in. Malachi is urging his community to take their faith seriously, not as an occasional hobby, but as a central piece of daily life. His tough love message makes the people squirm, but also forces them to think. Another striking theme is Malachi's concern with marriage and family. He criticizes men who are divorcing their Jewish wives to marry foreign women. In today's terms, it's like abandoning your longtime partner for a shiny new Tinder match. But Malachi isn't just ranting about dating apps. He's concerned with faithfulness, loyalty, and maintaining a covenantal community. For Malachi, relationships aren't just personal choices. They're tied up with the bigger picture of Jewish identity and continuity. His language is blunt. He calls divorce a betrayal and stresses that marriage is meant to reflect commitment and unity under God's guidance. That doesn't mean he was writing a modern-day marriage counseling book, but he was reminding people that family choices affect the strength of the entire community. If you think about it, it's kind of like the ancient version of think globally, act locally. Your choices at home ripple outward, shaping the spiritual health of everyone around you. Malachi also introduces a phrase that still gets quoted today. I hate robbery in the burnt offering. In plain language, don't try to cheat God. If you donate to charity, don't skim off the top. If you give time to a cause, don't cut corners. His words are about honesty and sincerity, qualities that never go out of style. Imagine someone showing up at a potluck with a half-empty bag of chips they already opened at home. That's the energy Malachi is calling out. He demands that people treat their commitments, both to God and to each other, with respect. And then there's one of the most famous parts of his book, the idea of tithes, or giving 1/10 of your income. Malachi challenges the people to bring their full offerings, promising that God will bless them in return. It's like saying, stop hoarding your snacks, share with the group, and you'll discover there's actually more than enough to go around.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Perhaps the most dramatic passage in Malachi is at the end, where he talks about the coming of Elijah the prophet. This idea has had a massive impact on Jewish tradition. Malachi says Elijah will come before the great and terrible day of the Lord, to turn the hearts of parents to children and children to parents. If that sounds familiar, it's because every year at Passover, we pour a cup of wine for Elijah and even open the door to welcome him in. That whole custom comes from this little book. Malachi's prophecy turned Elijah into Judaism's cosmic guest star, showing up in our imagination as the one who will announce the arrival of the Messianic age. Think of Elijah as the ultimate party crasher, always invited, never actually arrives, but one day he just might. That hope keeps Jewish ritual both playful and deeply serious, blending Malachi's ancient words with our ongoing traditions. Culturally, Malachi also shows us how Jewish thought was shifting. Earlier prophets thundered about exile, conquest, and destruction. Malachi, by contrast, is focused on community integrity, ethics, and preparation for redemption. It's like moving from a survival mode storyline to a how do we build a thriving society storyline. His voice sounds almost like a bridge between the classic prophets and later rabbinic Judaism, where the focus shifts more toward law, study, and community practice. Malachi even uses a conversational style, where God and the people argue back and forth. He says, you say, "How have we robbed God?" By withholding tithes and offerings. It's almost like an ancient podcast Q&A, where Malachi anticipates the audience's skeptical questions and responds in real time. This style makes the book relatable because it shows that faith isn't just a lecture, it's a dialogue between people and God, between tradition and the present moment. If you step back, Malachi's messages feel surprisingly modern. His concerns about half-hearted religious practice, about leaders not living up to their responsibilities, about family loyalty, about generosity and justice, are still issues we talk about today. Replace blemished sacrifices with cutting ethical corners in business, and you see the connection. Swap tithes with charitable donations, and the lesson holds. Malachi reminds us that spirituality isn't about flashy rituals, but about authentic living. His book asks us to check ourselves. Are we just going through the motions, or are we putting real heart into our commitments? In a world where it's easy to swipe, scroll, or ghost our responsibilities, Malachi's words hit like a spiritual notification buzzing on your phone, reminding you to pay attention. Sometimes the smallest alerts make the biggest difference, and Malachi is exactly that. Short, sharp, and impossible to ignore once you've read him. So as we wrap up, let's appreciate the Book of Malachi for what it is. A short but powerful mic drop moment at the end of the prophets. It's like the final chord of a long symphony, one that echoes into Jewish rituals, customs, and values even today. Whether it's the call for sincerity in worship, integrity in community, loyalty in family, or hope for Elijah's arrival, Malachi gives us a compact but meaningful message. And maybe that's the beauty of it. Sometimes less really is more. You don't need an 800-page novel to change hearts. You just need a few chapters of clear, honest words that people can carry forward into their daily lives. So next time you set a place for Elijah at Passover, or remind yourself to give generously, know that Malachi's little book is still speaking. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everything Jewish, 10 minutes at a time. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend or leave a positive review so more people can find the podcast.